Well, as we move into the next phase, before the induction is the call to stage. And I think this is one of the most important parts of the show also, because this generates the excitement level. This is where certain members of the audience find tremendous relief that they're not going to be forced to go up there by somebody. And let me assure you, the people who are made to go up stage by somebody else usually aren't good subjects. Okay? People who are encouraged or teased by their friends to go up and eventually make the decision to go up by themselves, that's cool. But when somebody is forced to go, you know, they get mad, those aren't good subjects. So you want people who are voluntary subjects. For this reason, I usually make it sort of what I call the Darwinian call to stage. If you're the fastest and swim the furthest, and you get to that point first, you get to stay. The rest of you don't. And so I like it when the audience is completely self-selected. So what I do when I get done with my pre-talk and get done with the convincers is I make this very clear announcement. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the part of the show that you have been waiting for. By the way, that is a hypnotic language pattern. This is the part that you have been waiting for. That's interpreted by the audience member as me. This is what I'm waiting for. And so they're excited by this. It generates enthusiasm with the audience. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the part of the show that you've been waiting for. This is your opportunity to take one of these 20 seats up here on stage and to experience hypnosis yourself. If you're ready to have more fun than anyone, to have the best seat in the house, to let loose and let go and be the star of tonight's show, head up on stage. I have 20, and right now the music kicks on. I got 20 seats. I need them filled up. Boy, girl, let's go. Fill up those stage, fill up these chairs, and I'll step off to the side and let people run up to the stage. Like I said, I call that the Darwinian method of call to the stage, because the fastest and the quickest are the ones who get to stay. And this way, if there are people who are reluctant or they're being pushed into it by somebody else, they're going to be slower than the rest of them. The people who come up are going to be the ones who want to come up, and the stage will fill up. And while they're coming up, I will move them boy, girl, and I'll try to move them boy, girl, and I'll ask people, hey, do any of you know anybody who's up here on stage? If you are, try not to sit next to somebody who you know. In some environments, that's not possible. Obviously, at a corporate party, everybody is sitting next to somebody that they know. They may even be afraid of who they're sitting next to, so be aware of that. In a school environment, of course, everybody knows who they're sitting next to. But you know, if I can move them next to people I don't know, that's great. My real issue here is I don't want two people talking during the induction and disturbing the people around them. That's really what's important, not do they know each other, but will they shut up and stop ribbing their next door neighbor, etc. So during the call to stage, the music is going, and the music that I use, I don't know where I found it, but it's actually a mix. It's actually some techno-funk mix of an Ozzy Osbourne song, but Madonna's doing the cover. So it starts out with Ozzy going, I, well, you'll hear it here in a minute when I show this clip of the call to stage, but Madonna's singing Crazy Train. I love it because it just sort of catches people's attention because it's odd, it's not what they expected. It's an interesting piece of music. Any music you use, pre-show music, induction music, call to stage music, skits and music during the skits, music during the pits should be music that's interesting music. Let's just say that something unusual happens. This is not usually the case, but after I turn around, call to stage, only one or two people comes up, or let's say nobody's coming up. Then I'll become very assertive. I'll let them know, ladies and gentlemen, the show can't start until you're ready to fill those seats, so come on up. Once one person comes up, a lot of people don't want to be the first one to volunteer for anything. So once one person comes up, boom, problem solved, the whole line of people comes up. Every now and then, let's say I have 20 chairs up here, I'll call, come on up stage, right? And I'll let the music go for like a minute, and everyone who seems to have come up has come up. Let's say only 12 of these chairs are full. And so there's 8 chairs that are left up here. I'll say, hey, come on, we still got some chairs left. Anyone else want to come up? And give people a chance to come up. Give them a chance to fill up those chairs. But there'll come a point where I'll just take those chairs off the side. That's fine. How many chairs do you put up there for a show? 20, 10, 8, 50? Well, I find that for me, when I'm doing a stage hypnosis show, it's hard for me to safely, and safety is one of the key issues, keep my eye on any more than 20 people on stage at a time. So I personally never want more than 20 people on stage. Sometimes the number of chairs we have on stage, though, is not going to be determined by how many people that I can safely manage. It's actually going to be determined by how big an area the stage is. And I found that many stages, particularly comedy clubs, are rather small. And I really can't fit any more than 10 or maybe 12 chairs on stage to begin with. So how many people I have on stage, how many chairs I have on stage, is not a function of how many people I have in the room, but actually literally how much room I have on stage for the people to safely interact and me to be able to get around them. So it's quite common that I'll only have 10 or 12 chairs. I have worked some shows with some very small stages where I've started with 8 chairs. That's it. That's the most that I could have up on stage. And I've done that on several occasions, ending up with a group usually of 5 or 6 people to work with for the show. That's going to be a smaller show. I generally have found that about 10% of the people in the audience are willing to come up. So if I have are willing to come up easily and quickly, okay? It's 10 on the low end, so 10 to 20% of the room. So if I have 100 people in the room, I can get 10 people up here, no problem, okay? I can probably get 20 people out of 100 people on stage if I really want them to, just by extending that invitation a little bit more, etc. But about 10% of the people in the room are willing to come up at a minimum. We can boost that up to about 20% by just being a little more interactive, giving them a little more time, maybe going out into the audience and asking people if they want to come up, etc. And so let's say I have a stage show with 50 folks. That means it's going to be easy for me to fill 5 chairs, and I can push it up to 10 by being a little more assertive with these folks. I can actually probably fill 10 chairs with a room full of 50 people. So that's kind of the guide for how many chairs to put up. If I had a room full of 50 people, I wouldn't put 20 chairs up, because first of all, half my audience would now be on stage, but it would be really hard for me to fill 20 chairs. But I could fill probably up to about 10 chairs with 50 people pretty easily. Now, that is the Darwinian method of doing the call to stage. Now let's talk about the other method, which is I, the hypnotist, select you to come up on stage. The reason why I don't prefer this method is because it may appear to some people that I'm using stooges or plants. Oh look, the hypnotist is picking who can come up. Now, that's why most stage hypnotists don't do this, I think. But there are times and places where, for safety's sake, it's necessary for us to go into the audience to pick people. If I do a high school show, for example, let's say there's 300 kids there at this high school show, and I have 20 chairs on stage, and I say, who wants to come up on stage, come take this chair. They're all 300 of them are going to rush the stage, okay? Everybody wants to be on stage. And so it becomes a real safety concern for me to just let them stampede on up here. So instead, what I'll do, if it's a high school show and I have 300 people and I'll have 20 chairs, is I'll say, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to come on, it's time to fill these chairs. And so if you want to be one of the lucky folks tonight who gets hypnotized, if you want to be the star of tonight's show and have more than anyone, what I want you to do is I want you to raise your hand high in the air so I can see you. And then I'll crank that music up, and while your hand is raised high in the air, I'm going to come around and I'm going to pick who we have room for. Raise your hand high so I can see you. And then I'll run around the room, and I'll just point different people in the room, okay, but I'll point directly at them, you in the striped shirt, etc. Now when I do this, especially in a school environment, I want to be politically correct for a minute. I try to get a real mix of people up here, okay? I try to pick the cowboy, I try to pick the preppy girl,